Hello guys, welcome to Intermediate English class. Here again you are with me, Mr. Merlos, and we are going to check out a little bit about the grammar topic that correspond to this week. And it's about the use of the first conditional in English. As you know, the first conditional is called like that because it corresponds to a specific combination of tenses. For example, when we make a sentence that has two clauses, normally one of those clauses is called an if clause, and that clause is dependent, and we call it a condition. So the condition has to be accomplished in order to something happen, and that happened is another right clause that we call main clause or independent clause. We consider this as the result of the condition or the future action that we are planning in the future. So when we say if it rains tomorrow, that is something that we expect that is going to happen, right? It's a condition. So what is going to happen, the result is that Laura won't go to the beach. So this is a consequence of this, right, happening. But this is only possible, right? When we say if, we say it as a condition. If it happens, right, the other thing will happen. If the train doesn't arrive, I'll be late for the meeting. So here the condition is that the train doesn't arrive and the result that I'll be late for the meeting. And if she fails the exam, will she have to do it again? So it's another right result for the condition if she fails the exam. So only if this happens, the other thing will happen. That's why we call the first conditional because something happens and something else will happen as a result. When we use right the first conditional sentences, these sentences are complex. So it has a dependent clause and an independent clause. And at the same time, the dependent clause is a clause that we call adverbial. Adverbial clauses have the characteristic that we can change the order of the clauses and we keep the same meaning in the sentence. So we can say Laura won't go to the beach if it rains tomorrow. The only difference in here is in the punctuation because if you see, when we use the dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence, the connector if as the first word, the comma is used to separate the dependent clause for the independent clause. But when we switch the places and the independent clause is first, we don't need a comma separating the two clauses, right? The connector is the one that indicates where the independent clause finishes and where the dependent clause begins. Let's check out this in the grammar section of the book. We see a little bit about that explanation here again. Remember that all of the sentences that we use in first conditional are formed by two elements, right? The two clauses. The clause that we consider dependent or also the if clause, that is an adverbial clause, and the main clause or independent clause, that is the one that can stand alone. When we use them, remember that we use the connector at the beginning. We had to separate the dependent clause with a comma from the independent clause. So it doesn't matter, right, what is the length of the dependent clause if it has a subject and a verb and the connector. So where we finish that, there is a comma. And then we start the other subject and verb in the independent clause. So the comma is very important. Then, if we move the position, the meaning is the same, but right, the dependent clause is now finishing the sentence, and the connector if is the one that indicates where right the subject begins. Also, the if clause, right, the tenses that we use have to correspond to this form. The if clause in the first conditional is always used in present simple, right? It could be in the positive form, the negative form, right? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, whether it is simple present. And the main clause, as the result, we can use it in with the future simple and the modal will. So we can use the modal will in positive form, we can use it in negative form, or we can use it in question form. No problem, right? If you use it in question form, there's a possibility that we are answering a question. So we answer that question using yes I will or no I won't. The part that has the if clause or the dependent part doesn't have to affect, right, the answer in that case. So also other possibilities, right, for using in the result in the main clause is the modals may and might, because if you remember, they are also used for talking about the future in possibilities, right? So if you say, if you get the new job in Shanghai, I might move house, right? So might in this case talking about possibility in the future, so replace the modal will. Or we can use also may, right, for talking about possibility in the same way, but in the main clause, right? Never in the dependent clause, right? The dependent clause is always used in simple present. Also, another option is using can, right, can also be used, right, as a possibility modal. So if we use it like that, right, it's going to be in the independent clause, right? The dependent clause with the connector if is always in simple present. Another option is to use, right, is to use the imperative, right, in the independent clause to talk about an instruction, right, for possible situations in the future. For example, please tell Carla about the new class if you see her tonight. So it's an instruction in the future, but there is a condition, right, to accomplish that instruction. Or if you use this computer, don't press this button. It's an instruction that has a condition. So that's how we use the imperative, right, also in the main clause for talking about the future. Okay, thank you very much, guys. I hope the topic is clear.